Welcome to Mel's Diner, a place where stories and songs build community and connections. My name is Matthew Merson, and each guest at Mel's Diner heads over to the Jukebox, selects really important, sentimental, and valuable songs to them, and then shares those stories of how each song gained that personal and powerful meaning in their life. So let's order some food, a cup of coffee, and grab a seat at the counter and listen to some of those amazing stories and songs. I'm so glad you're here. Welcome into Mel's Diner, my friend. I am Matthew, and I am so glad you are here. Today, I talked to Owen Smith. Owen Smith is a student at the University of Vermont. We've actually never met in person, and it was an amazing conversation and getting to know Owen through the songs that he holds dear to his heart. We have a great conversation. We talk about his first musical loves as a kid, listening to songs that his dad used to record on mixtapes. I mean, they must have hundreds of mixtapes from the stories that Owen was telling. His dad just always putting together something near and dear to my heart, some playlists, some mixtapes. I love it, man. And it just really, you can tell that Owen, his love of music really is rooted in the love of music instilled by his father and his extended family. He talks about listening to music on a train down in New Orleans. He talks about some of his favorite songs, what he listened to when he was studying abroad in Patagonia. He talked about songs that helped him through times of depression, especially times of being on his own and some homesickness and being on his own, some times of depression up there in Vermont, seasonal depression, songs that helped him get through that. But underlying everything, you are going to hear stories of where Owen talks about how important songs are, not so much because of the song, but because of the family member that it reminds him of or the family member that showed it to him. Owen's love for music is only shadowed by his love for his family. And it is a beautiful and just encouraging thing to hear a young college student just talk so much with pride about his family and the music that they've shared over the years. So I can't wait for you to hear this conversation. It's going to be amazing. Make sure you listen to Owen's Jukebox picks. All of the songs that he's chosen are on a playlist. There in the show notes, there's one for Spotify, one for Apple. So make sure you click those songs to hear those songs in light of his stories. And then you can listen to Mel's picks. So today I have 5 songs for you. These are Mel's picks, also Spotify and Apple playlists there for you. So some 5 songs if you want to check out just some cool songs that I've heard recently. So the first one is a Van Morrison song. It was kind of a new song to me. It's called You Gotta Make It Through the World. It is very cool. 1977 blues, maybe even some slow funk groove to it. Just a great vibe. And if you're a saxophone fan, there is a big saxophone in the song. It is very, very cool. You Got to Make It Through the World by Van Morrison. Track number 2 is Without You by Lazy Haze. This track is on their 2024 album. It is a very cool indie rock. I must say a great summer night drive song. Just really great. Yeah, great sound. Without You by Lazy Haze. Next up is a song called Detroit or Buffalo by Barbara Keith. This is off of her 2005 album, really her only album. It's great. Country blues. It sounds like it's from the 60s. It's really, really, really great song. I really like this one. Detroit or Buffalo. Owen's going to talk about, like I mentioned, going down to New Orleans and riding this train, the spirit of New Orleans. And this one is kind of an ode to that, a country song, and I think with some place names in it, Detroit or Buffalo. Track number 4 for Mel's Picks, How Would You Know by the Grogans. And this is a really cool song, and I have my son actually to thank for this one. My 14-year-old son, he turned me on to this band, the Grogans. How Would You Know? Very, very cool indie rock. Yeah, it's awesome. And then finally, the last track is Age of Consent by Geographer. This is from his 2015 album. This is another great summer driving song. A little bit more on the synthy or the poppier side, but very, very cool. indie. So there you have it. There are 5 Mel's picks. I would recommend that if you want to discover some new tracks, there are 5 for you right there that I recommend. But I would say listen to Owen's tracks first. So listen to Owen's conversation here coming up next and the music that he selected. Before we get into this conversation, I just want to thank you for tuning in. It really means a lot to me. If you want to reach out, you can email me, melsdinerjukebox@gmail.com. There's a link in the show notes as well. I would love to hear from you. If you want to be on the show, if you have a friend, a cousin, a nephew, anybody that wants to be on the show or think would be amazing on the show, have them reach out. I'd love to set up a time. We can talk from anywhere. So melsdinerjukebox@gmail.com. Drop a line. Just say hey. Let me know what you think. And make sure you subscribe and share. This is going to be great. The more people that pack out Mel's Diner, in my opinion, the music just sounds better. So anyway, I hope you're doing great. I hope this summer's treating you well. And without further ado, let's cue up this conversation I had with Mr. Owen Smith. Well, hello, and welcome to Mel's Diner. It's so nice to have you here, man. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Where did you just drive in from? Where are you at right now? Tell us a little bit about who you are and how'd you get here?
Yeah, my name's Owen Smith. I'm from Nashville, Tennessee, and I've just been on the road. And I'm up here in Burlington, Vermont, calling in after spending a beautiful day on Lake Champlain.
Awesome. Well, any day on Lake Champlain is beautiful.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you're from Nashville, Music
Nashville,
City.
Tennessee. Exactly.
Okay. Well, we are big fans of Music City here at Mel's Diner. You grew up there?
Yes, I grew up in Nashville. About I'd say 20 minutes outside of the main downtown area. So growing up in Nashville, I really didn't grow up in a city. I grew up out in the country, kind of, which is just a beautiful place, and I've loved getting to grow up there, out just a little bit more isolated from the hustle and bustle of the big town.
Since you grew up there, have you seen like Nashville change since you've lived there? Like, has it gotten busier, bigger?
I mean, absolutely. I can barely even recognize the neighborhoods around outside of my house. Just so many more apartments, so many more businesses, so many new restaurants and such. It almost just kind of feels a little bit like a revolving door at times. Just always in progress, always moving. And yeah, I think it's very cool to see all this new stuff come in. You get a lot of cool new businesses and such, but also, yeah, that place I grew up with isn't truly there anymore in some ways.
Yeah, I think maybe we all, depending where we grew up, I think we all, as adults, like look back or we go to our childhood homes or childhood towns, and it's like, oh man, this is different. Sometimes for the better, a lot of times it's like, as things grow up, it's just not as maybe romantic or as I don't know, calm as it probably was in our memories. But I guess since you grew up in Nashville, like, was music a big part of growing up for you, like in your house, or like what was music like growing up as a kid in Nashville for you?
Yeah. I mean, growing up in the house, I can always remember my dad having CDs on in the living room or in the kitchen. Yeah, always in the car. It was some sort of music. No matter where we're going, we were playing music. Go to a lot of shows. The Ryman Auditorium, if you've never been, it's one of the most beautiful venues in music. So a lot of shows going there. And then the older I got, we went to the Exit Inn a couple times, a small club. Anytime you go down to Broadway, there's live music there. And I remember my dad taking me down as a kid. We'd drive through, the honky tonks and bars, just driving through, and we'd see all the neon lights, Ernest Tubbs record shop, Hank Williams, Bar and Lounge, Tootsie's is a classic. And yeah, so just growing up in Nashville, there was always music around me. And then in my own home, my dad would always be playing music, and my mom, she loved music too. So yeah, absolutely. Music was a big part of my life.
Was it country music?
No, generally not. So with my mother, it was more towards the bluegrass and folk side of things. I remember her playing a lot of Tony Rice, Ricky Skaggs, John Prine. When I was a kid, my dad, he really controlled the music because it was his main setup. When I would walk into the house in April tax season, I'd always hear Genesis, King Crimson, Peter Gabriel playing on the stereo, and I'd be like, "Oh, I know what time of year it is. It's tax season." So, or sometimes I'd come in the kitchen, and he was cooking, and it would be AC/DC and Dr. John playing, and I'd be
Whoa.
like, "Oh, I know what's happening here." So you could
I
always
mean,
kind of tell by his mood what would be on the
dude,
stereo. But yeah, and then the other thing too, I remember growing up is he was always making mixtapes. Um, and he still does, and he kind of has me doing it some too. I remember I made my first one when I was 5. It wasn't very good. I think it had like the Beatles and some pop songs. I know it had Lady Gaga on it because my mom like helped me make this and put it together, and so she's like, "Oh, this is a very popular song right now," and helped me pick it out. And so yeah, I think it was called like OWEN'S Sports CDs, and I was like 5 or 6 years old. But yeah, my dad, he's been making mixtapes for a long time. I have some old cassette tapes here in my room right now. Just most recently, he made a Bob Mould mixtape of his work with Sugar and Husker Du and some of his solo stuff. And yeah, sometimes I even give him projects. So I just asked him for a Richard Thompson sampler. He made me like asked him just to make the greatest hits of Memphis at one point and just kind of let him do his thing. Just be like, I like a lot of stuff from Sun and Stax. And I was like, all right, you just do your own thing. And so what he did is he focused on this small studio in Memphis, so where a lot of artists record, called Ardent Studio. And so he made a mixtape of just artists who recorded at Ardent. So some of those were REM, John Prine, Otis Redding. It was kind of all over the map. Reverend Horton Heat. And that kind of got me into the Rev and such. So yeah, there was always music happening. He was always working on a project, sampler, whatever. And I still have so many of his CDs and cassettes and mixtapes just everywhere scattered around. So uh,
that's amazing. Does
yeah.
like you say, he still makes this? I mean, he's making these like on tapes or on CDs, or is he
Well, it's
making
updated
playlists
to
now?
CDs now. It started as cassette tapes. Now it's upgraded to CDs. So yeah, he just makes a playlist in iTunes. So he burns CDs onto there and then makes a playlist in iTunes and then yeah, distributes them. And he says it's pretty bad now. Like me and his friend Rich are like the only two people who still have CD players. So he can't
Right.
really give them out anymore because everyone's using playlists and Spotify and everything. So yeah, his audience has shrunk, but his audience is still loyal.
Well, I think most, not even like audio files, but at my local record stores, they're selling CDs. New musicians come out with their new albums on CDs and cassette tapes, and
Yeah.
some even do 8 tracks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You still get an 8 track, but
Wow.
um, vinyl is more popular now than it has been the last probably 10, 15 years. So there is a market for analog or more, even a CDs, maybe not analog, but just a physical
Yeah.
music that you're
Physical
like
music.
putting into something and playing and listening. So that's amazing. I mean, we need to get your parents on. We need your parents need to visit Mel's Diner. Sounds like.
Yeah.
So, what's music like for you now as a college student? Grew up in Nashville, but what's your music like now? I mean, you're getting mixed CDs. It sounds like from your dad in the mail or
Yeah.
something like that, or when you
Yeah.
go home. But what are you listening to now? I mean, you're in the town where Fish started. Like where?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I don't want to say that was the entire reason I came here, but it definitely helped. So yeah, I love Fish, but honestly, moving away from Nashville, I didn't really get into country music and folk music until I moved away and kind of was like, oh, I see what I'm missing now. So, just to say some of the things I've really been liking a lot recently. Sturgill Simpson came out with a new album, Johnny Blue Skies.
There you
Um,
go. Yeah.
it was awesome. I love it. Like I said, the Reverend Horton Heat. That's one my dad kind of got me into, and I've been loving that. Richard Thompson a lot. I'm kind of all over the map with everything. Rap too. I listen to Outkast and a lot of the Griselda records, and their kind of crew. I really like that. But yeah, I would say country music and Americana is really kind of what my music taste has blossomed into. Probably more from like traditional, like what would you call dad rock and 70s rock. And yeah.
Do you have roommates? Do you live like off campus? Do you like who's playing the music in your house? Is that you?
So generally it's a fight between me and my other roommate. He is more into like Radiohead, The Cure, Smashing Pumpkins, which I like Smashing Pumpkins. We definitely have some crossover, but generally, more often than not, we're fighting about like whose music taste is better. But we share it. He brought a record player up here, so I mean, there's almost always music on somewhere. I have my headphones on, and like I'll be watching baseball games and playing the speaker. But I think probably the best comparison between the two is his mom took us out to dinner one night, and she knows he loves The Cure. And I was talking about Leonard Skinner and Marshall Tucker Band, and she goes, "So who do you think had the greater impact on music, The Cure or Leonard Skinner?" And I buckle and I was like, probably The Cure, and but I feel like that's a pretty apt representation of where it is. Like the debate between The Cure and Leonard Skinner, like something a little more southern and jammy, guitar driven versus something that's a little more technical, electronic, and just kind of yeah, almost audiophile is the word I would use, and kind of like people who really like kind of niche and arty music, with The Cure and kind of Radiohead's different sound. So that'd probably be our debate most of the time.
Wow, that's well, I mean that I could see how that debate would be pretty hard to settle, honestly. I mean,
Yeah.
I think there's arguments on both sides of that. That's a good question. Maybe I should ask every guest at Mel's Diner who has more influence, The Cure or Leonard Skinner?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good
We still
question.
talk about it today.
Yeah.
I haven't backed down fully yet.
That's amazing. Well, that's awesome, man. It sounds like you have music running in your veins, and it sounds like you have your parents to thank for that, and that
Absolutely.
that's incredible. But here at Mel's Diner, we have this magic jukebox. It's got almost every song in the world, and I want you to go and pick like 10 songs about some songs that are really important to you. Not the best songs, not your favorite guitar solos, not the best Bob Dylan cover. Maybe I'm not saying I don't know if there is one in there, but pick whatever's like super important to you. And then just tell us those stories. That's what we want to hear. Those stories of how these songs are super important. And every song that you pick, there'll be a playlist generated in both Spotify and Apple Music. It'll be in the show notes. You can just go down and see Owen's Jukebox picks there. Pick your streaming service of choice. And after you hear these stories that you're about to tell us, then we'll hear these songs and it'll take on new meaning for us. But so I'm super excited. But while you go to the jukebox and pick out those songs here at Mel's Diner, we are a diner, and it is 3:23 p.m. in the afternoon, Eastern time, 3 in the afternoon. So what's your diner order? We're at the counter of this diner. What are you going to order at this? We can cook you anything you want. What would you like to
Perfect.
eat?
So, in true Southern fashion, I think I'll go for the meat and three. So, can I get a country ham, please, with a side of grits, mashed potatoes, and I'll get some green beans, I think, cooked with a little bit of bacon in there. So, go for all
Oh
that. And a
my.
sweet tea, of course, please.
Actually, I think we should just put on whatever music and just eat that because that sounds amazing right now. That
Yeah.
sounds so good. All right, so I'm gonna get your country ham. You said like
Country ham,
a ham
please.
steak. All right, so country ham, mashed potatoes, grits. We make a mean grits down here, and some green beans and some sweet tea. You
Yeah.
go to the jukebox, and then we'll talk about what songs.
Perfect. I'll head right over.
All right, so you got your songs.
Yes, I do.
All
I
right,
have the songs loaded up here. Ready.
cool. What you got for number one?
So I kind of want to take this a little bit in a chronological order. So, I mean, this was a really important group and a really important band when I was growing up. Almost to the point of exhaustion for my poor mother, driving me around. It wasn't so much a question of what we listened to, but more so what album we would listen to. And that group is the Beatles. And I still love the Beatles to this day. And so the song I picked out is When I'm 64 by the Beatles, off of the Sgt. Pepper's album. I don't have so much a true story with this, but just the Beatles were always around when I was a kid. The Beatles are still around now. And yeah, whenever we drive out, wherever we're going, like I said, just to the point of exhaustion for my mother, it was always the Beatles. And what Beatles song would I be playing today? And yeah, I used to love Magical Mystery Tour so much. But yeah, when I'm 64, the other part of it, the reason I chose this one specifically is in the 60s at some point they made the animated film Yellow Submarine with the Beatles, an instant classic, psychedelic, just it's a weird film if you've never seen it. But they go through the sea of time, and one of the songs they put into the movie is When I'm 64. And Paul's just singing, growing this big bushy beard out, and they're all just walking around the submarine singing. Eventually, they find the time mechanism that is broken, leading them all to get older, and they reverse it so they all kind of go back through time. Beard shrinks, they look younger again, and yeah, I mean, just the Beatles were just such a important group for me. I think my dad and I both still kind of fangirl over the Beatles and even into like, George Harrison. I love Paul McCartney's solo work now and John Lennon's. Yeah. Sorry, Ringo. Not quite a big a fan, but yeah, the Beatles were just so awesome. And yeah, they were really the first true musical group and music I loved growing up.
That'll never die. I mean, that'll never change, I'm sure, for
No.
you. And for anybody
Yeah.
who is a fan. Like this music is timeless, you know. They
Yeah.
made masterpieces of music. So amazing.
And Yellow Submarine is still one of my favorite movies to this day. You could put it on any
Okay.
time and I'll sit down and get hooked. It's such a great film.
Awesome. I don't know if I've ever heard, well, I don't think I've ever seen it, but I don't think I've ever heard anybody say that, say that. That's
Yeah.
awesome, man. I have to check it out.
Yeah.
Definitely knew it existed. I've never actually watched it. But all right. So what you got for number two?
So for number two is a song that reminds me of my dad. And it's Elvis Presley's Trying to Get to You. So I kind of talked about how my dad would make these mixtapes. And one of the first ones I remember as a kid, he made a mixtape called Old School 24. And one of the first songs on there was Elvis's Trying to Get to You. And yeah, just every time I hear that song, I think of my dad and just remember it. And really, one of the main memories I have of it doesn't even concern my dad. Whenever I'd stay over with my grandma, she'd always put on like a CD as we were going to bed. And so I'd climb in the bed with her, just a little kid. And usually it was that Old School 24 CD, and it had the Everly Brothers and some Johnny Cash on there. But I always remember Trying to Get to You. Just such a short, sweet song. And yeah, I can hear that song over and over and over and never get tired of it. And I think one reason it was kind of important to him is he went to school in Memphis and lived in Memphis for a while. So, that was one of Elvis's first records to come out while he was still in Memphis and before he went like Vegas Elvis. Um, and yeah, so it kind of has my love of Elvis a little bit in there too. I really like that kind of Memphis, a little bit country, Southern Elvis, which is just really cool.
Was your dad a Elvis fan? Like, did he love Elvis, or did he like just love the song and did it fit this playlist that he made?
I think that's more so of it. I think he just loves music and it fit in that playlist. I mean, probably if you ask him, he'd be like, "Yeah, I like Elvis." Actually, I'll tell you who he really likes. He likes Carl Perkins. That's who he
Oh,
was enamored with. He said,
okay.
I remember a couple times, I think he's backed off of it now, but he said if Carl Perkins came before Elvis, he would have been bigger than Elvis. So I'm like, I'm not entirely sure about that, but yeah, I know I just kind of love that early Memphis sound that came out of there in the Sun Studios and such.
I love how this track, which I'm sure your dad chose it. Well, he chose it for whether it's melodically or just the vibe of the song. But I love how this track like makes you think of your dad. And
Mhm.
so tell me, you would put the CD on like when you were at your grandmother's house and like just
Yeah,
trying to fall asleep? Like,
yeah. She had a CD player, and I remember a couple other CDs. She had this like weird, like kind of spacey sound CD that she'd put on sometimes. But the two that were always my favorite, and I always asked her to put her on, was um, Old School 24 by my dad, who made it. And then I can't remember who it was, but the song was Miles and Miles of Texas. And I remember as a woman singing it. I have no clue who it was, but I just remember that song, Miles and Miles of Texas, and getting up in her big, giant, feathery bed and going to bed there. And we wake up in the morning, she'd make me waffles and take me to school. And yeah, a lot of bacon. She always cooked me mountains of bacon, which, spoiled the
oh, wow.
grandchild.
Yeah. And this is in Nashville too.
This is in Nashville
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
Okay. Man, that's so cool. And so
Yeah.
these were playing this song, this CD. So these were playing on the speakers out like open air, and like not you weren't having headphones on, like
No,
falling
this was
asleep.
like a little jam box, probably about this size, like the size of a red box. And yeah, we just put it on and go to bed, get our little dog up there, and yeah, that song. Every time I see it now, I can think of that memory, and just makes me think of my dad putting these CDs together, and yeah, just growing up as a little kid there.
What a sweet memory, man. That's
Yeah.
awesome. What's next?
So the next song I have for you guys is "The City of New Orleans" by Arlo Guthrie. This one, again, another one that makes me. My dad put on one of his CDs. It was a whole CD about trains. Um, it had like Doc Watson and Gillian Welch and Jimmy Rogers, just a whole bunch. But I mean, one of the main things that it just hits is when I was a little kid, we took the city of New Orleans, leaving out of Memphis. We drove down to Memphis, and I remember the whole thing. The car broke down on the way, and we stayed with my great aunt that night and got up at like 5 a.m. But we got on the city of New Orleans and took it down through the Mississippi countryside all the way down, cross Lake Pontchartrain into New Orleans, and yeah, and had a little trip down there. And we went to all the cool cemeteries and Cafe Du Monde and got some of the beignets and walked around the French Quarter. And I can't even remember. It's so random. March Madness was on at the time we went down as a spring break trip. And I remember is I can't even tell you the team. It was the Florida Gulf Coast University 24, not maybe not 2014, but Dunk City team playing in like the round of 32. I remember it being on in the hotel room, and yeah, so we took it that train down and took it back up. And I had this little MP3 player, and it probably had about 70 or 60 songs on it. And yeah, that was one of them on there. And I just remember being on the train singing that song in my heart out on the city of New Orleans. And yeah, it's just one that's one of my favorites, and I love trains as a kid, so I always loved that song. So yeah, I feel like a lot of these songs for me have just multiple overlapping, interweaving memories for me. And yeah, the city of New Orleans train trip was really, really cool. I'm like I said, I was pretty young, so I don't remember a lot of it, but yeah, the city of New Orleans by Arlo Guthrie, and his voice on that song, it's just perfect. I don't think anyone could ever do it better. I think that's the quintessential version. I don't think anyone could ever beat his version of it.
So this train, it would leave. So it went left out of Memphis and went to
Yeah.
New Orleans.
So I believe it did start up in Chicago, even, and the whole song kind of traces it down that route. And one of the lines is through the Mississippi darkness rolling out to the sea. And I remember going through Mississippi 5 or 6 a.m. riding down there from Memphis, and just heading down there. And yeah, I was very little, and I'd always walk around the train cars and such. It was a 1 day trip down there from Memphis, but yeah, it was an Amtrak little train that runs from Memphis down to New Orleans, and I think from New Orleans back up to Chicago. Um, yeah, following the Mississippi and kind of that valley river there, and yeah,
That's really cool. How old were you when you did this trip?
geez, I would think I was about 8 or 9, maybe. I was pretty young. I was still in elementary school. I was pretty young. And yeah, I remember going to parks and stuff down there. And yeah, it was just a very cool trip. And like at that age, you kind of fully don't appreciate what you're seeing and fully understand the trip and the travel. But looking back on it, I'm like, man, I can say I've done this. And yeah, being able to like have almost a deeper meaning with that song now, saying like I've ridden the city of New Orleans. And yeah, very, very cool.
And you listen to this song on
Yeah.
that train. So, and I'm sure, I mean, I don't, so this song just takes you right back to that train car every time you hear
Takes
it.
me right back to that train car, takes me back to just being at home with that train album on. That's one of my just, when you're just homesick and need to find your home wherever you are. That album that my dad made is one I can just throw on anywhere, anytime, and I'm immediately transported back to home in that trip and just feeling at home and feeling comfortable and at ease. And I remember moving to college one day, I was just very homesick, and I put that album on, and it may have caused a few tears, just like, oh, I miss home, but it instantly transports you back to that place. And just all those songs, like, it's one of those things you immediately know the next note, whatever it is. The whole album front to back. You could say almost every song on it front to back. I mean, yeah, I listened to
Wow.
that thing so many times.
That's amazing, man.
Yeah,
What a gift your dad is
I
he
know.
gave to you. I'm sure you didn't even realize that at the time.
No,
Like, But now like these things are just embedded in you. It sounds like now that you're up in New England, you can
Yeah,
put that song on and be right back
exactly.
there. And it's so impactful. I mean, like that you even know who was playing in March Madness in the
Yeah,
hotel. Like
exactly. These songs, I mean, they just have a way of like bundling the whole picture with you together. And yeah, I can remember it pretty vividly, which is incredible.
oh, that's beautiful. I mean, after we eat this ham steak and green beans,
Yeah,
we're gonna listen to this song and we'll be on the train right there with you, brother.
exactly.
What you got for number 4?
So we're gonna take a little trip over to Bristol, Tennessee. Get out of Nashville and go over Bristol, Virginia, Clutch Mountain Way, and we're gonna play White Dove by the Stanley Brothers. Um, and again, this isn't somewhat another song where I have like a pure memory of it, but I have this feeling of it, and just I grew up with this song around me. So my uncle and my grandfather and my mother, that household on their side was a big bluegrass household. And they like gospel bluegrass, just pure mountain grass, whatever it was. And um, yeah, Station Inn, I've gotten taken there a couple times in Nashville, which is a big bluegrass place. But this song, I think, really important for me, White Dove, because now I kind of equate it with kind of my faith too. I really like the gospel, the old time stuff. I don't really listen to modern Christian music, but um, yeah, White Dove by the Stanley Brothers is one I know I just heard growing up, and all sorts of the Stanley Brothers. Again, it kind of takes you back to that family in that house. And I know the day my grandfather died, we were listening to an album called Saturday Night and Sunday Morning by Ralph Stanley, where he just plays a lot of old time bluegrass tunes and does a lot of duets. And I think Dwight Yoakam, Emmy Lou's on there, Tom T. Hall. So the Stanley Brothers was a big group I grew up with. And one of the first CDs I got, my uncle bought me the Stanley Brothers Greatest Hits. And I don't know if I still have it today or I gave it away, but it's another one where I didn't really fully appreciate the bluegrass until I got older. It was kind of still in that phase where it was mostly just Beatles and such. But yeah, I grew up with the Stanley Brothers around me, and the older I've gotten, the more this music just kind of be like, oh. And as I said, the when I kind of came into faith here, moving to college and such, I really kind of got into gospel. So Stanley Brothers are some of my favorites. Um, Bill Monroe, and then Merle Haggard has an album called The Land of Many Churches, where he plays a bunch of gospel tunes with Carter Family, and he goes into these little churches, and they're all live records, and that's something I really connected to. So I'd say the Stanley Brothers both are just almost a historic connection with my family, but now kind of more of a modern connection and can help me plug into my faith with these um, gospel tunes they've played and just this old time sound. And a lot of my friends, they don't fully understand, like, why would you listen to that bluegrass or why would you listen to this mountain music? And they just don't fully understand until you grow up around it and you just learn to love it.
So I'm not familiar with this song. So this is like a gospel song, White Dove,
Yeah.
or is it faith-based song?
It's another classic bluegrass song, Mother and Daddy are dead. And yeah, this guy's out there praying, and white doves will moan in sorrow and the willows will hang their head. Just about this guy's parents passing away. And, I think it kind of reminds you to look to God in the hard times and such. And yeah, it was kind of a fight to choose which Stanley Brothers song goes on there. Kind of like the Beatles. It wasn't so much a certain memory with a certain song, but just kind of this group that was around me as I grew up and such. And yeah, the Stanley Brothers, their music was constantly being played around me. My dad loves Ralph Stanley. Um, we've all talked about how just his voice in particular is the voice of bluegrass music, just kind of that true high and lonesome sound. You take him alone. It's not a very great voice, but you put him in that context of what he's singing about, you can feel the heartache, feel the sorrow that's coming through him, through his songs and such. And yeah, just incredible. So both my mom, dad, especially grandfather on her side, they grew up loving bluegrass, and it's kind of trickled down a little bit.
I love how like this just reminds you of your family, especially like maybe your grandparents, and
Yeah.
It sounds like you have some sweet memories, like with this Elvis track, kind of getting in the bed, laying down next to your
Yeah.
grandma, and now this, and your grandfather, and the connection to bluegrass, and
Yeah.
that's really beautiful, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I think family just, yeah, kind of defined my love of music, as a lot of people on here, I think, can attest to that.
Awesome, man. All right, so what do you got for track number 5?
Track number 5 is a song by Townes Van Zandt called Poncho and Lefty. This is a song I got into Townes Van Zandt in my freshman year of high school. I heard his live album Road Songs, where he does a lot of different covers of people. I was talking to my mom about it one day, and she's like, "Have you heard this song, Poncho and Lefty?" And I listened to it, and I thought it was all right. And then I came upon it again, and still pretty good. And then, just the more I listened to it, the more that song just kind of grew on me, and I loved it. And then COVID hit. I remember we were on a trip out west, actually, in fact. We took a little trip out to Colorado to go see the Rockies and Mesa Verde, and we're taking a little road trip out there, Colorado, New Mexico area. But I just remember that song being kind of an integral part of that, and just during my COVID time, and just throughout my life, as the older I've gotten, I've just loved Townes Van Zandt more and more, and just kind of, yeah, I think Townes Van Zandt's life, it's just so tragic, just how lost he felt, and just kind of the years of abuse he put himself through, that led to his untimely death, and it's kind of a martyr of that country time. But I think he's one of the greatest American songwriters to ever grace this. Getting back to Poncho and Lefty, I just remember this song on that trip, and kind of that COVID time, and it's really kind of what pushed me forward. One of my starting blocks for my love of country music too. Even though I was living in Nashville, and again, kind of just talking about with Ralph Stanley, you take his voice alone, you're like, he's not the best singer, but you put him into the context of his music and what he's going through, you can feel that pain, you can feel that heartache, that whatever story he's written, he's gone through it. And I just think his music speaks volumes, and I hope that even today people still find ways to connect with it and such. And I know certainly I have, and he's one of my favorites. And so many of his songs just have played a part in my life. So yeah, Poncho and Lefty is just, what a great story. Like I said, you don't really know what happens that night, and I think it's up to the listener what happens.
Well, first of all, I agree with everything you just said. So your mom introduced you to this song?
And yeah, she kind of pointed me towards this song, and so thanks to my mom. And really now I'm the biggest Townes Van Zandt fan in the house. And I remember one time we went to a show, like a little bluegrass show up in East Tennessee or something, and they started playing Fraulein. And I know it's kind of an older song, but I didn't know that at the time. I was like, oh, this is a Townes Van Zandt song. And this lady whipped her head around in front of me, and was like, who is this 15-year-old kid talking about Townes Van Zandt? So yeah, what a gem to find. I feel like he's not talked about enough. Like I said, just great.
Yeah, another just incredibly underappreciated. And yeah, his story. Yeah, he was taken too young from us, but he was a tortured genius.
I mean,
honestly.
right there with Hank Williams.
Yep, exactly. When was this trip out west that you were listening to this? You said it was during COVID. So were you
right at the start of COVID? So we left Nashville, flew into Albuquerque, and started on the road up to Santa Fe. And I remember we spent the night in Santa Fe, and we drove over to Taos. And we got into Colorado one night, and they said, so this virus is going around, so you can't eat in dining rooms anymore. You're gonna have to take it to go. And yeah, by the end of the trip, it was about a week and a half trip. It was almost full lockdown. We were almost kind of lucky we got back to Nashville. Yeah, it was literally right at the start of COVID. And yeah, we went to a couple national parks. We tried to go to Mesa Verde, went to Hovenweep National Monument, but kind of the soundtrack for me during that trip was Townes Van Zandt, especially Road Songs. Like I said, it kind of took a little bit for me to grow into Poncho and Lefty, but yeah, Road Songs was kind of like the foundation of that. And I just remember listening to it going down the highway in the car.
This is with your family, like your parents?
With my family in a rental car. I got it connected to the Bluetooth, and I just hit play. And yeah, Road Songs also, if you haven't listened to that, great album he covers Springsteen's Racing in the Streets. Just awesome.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. I'm familiar with that one. I'm envisioning your parents who are also music heads, and your dad who's loving these songs, and you're just DJing them, and I lived out west. I lived in Idaho and California. I've been to all those states you just mentioned, and you get to hear those songs with the people that you love and who love you the most, and you're just driving around like that's. I don't know much in life that gets much better than that.
No,
Right
I
there.
mean, a road trip with good music, you can't
And
beat
great
it.
people and
Exactly.
diners that you can
Exactly.
get into and sit at the counter and yeah,
I don't
exactly.
know if it's quite as good as Mel's, but they can try. They can try.
Well, we'll find out. We'll find out.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Okay, you got what's number 6?
So as aforementioned, John Prine, Please Don't Bury Me. I talked about how Elvis makes me immediately go think of my dad and my childhood. Please Don't Bury Me immediately makes me go think of my mom. And I remember moving up here, it was just really hard. I was very homesick. So I'd take my bike down to the waterfront and go bike along the bike path, and just tears streaming down my face. And I mean, this is all true. I would call her up on the phone. I was like, can you just please sing Please Don't Bury Me? Again, not a deep meaning song, at least for me, but it just immediately makes me go think of my mom. And it's just such a silly, goofy song now, for me. I adapted. I learned to not be so homesick and kind of turned Burlington into my home a little bit. But yeah, John Prine immediately makes me think of my mom. And I remember too, like the day he died, my uncle, again, in a car trip, we're heading somewhere out in Oklahoma. And he puts on that album, Sweet Revenge. And I had heard most of the songs on it, but not like the whole way through. I know Mexican Home, my dad put on one of those mixtapes, but he played it and I was like, oh, this isn't bad. So I listened to it again. And again, it just kind of slowly grew on me until, it's one of my favorites now. And yes, Sweet Revenge is such a great album, but Please Don't Bury Me immediately makes me think of my mom and that time kind of moving in here to college, and how hard it was just to adapt to kind of a new place without your parents and everything. But, now I'm definitely comfortable and settled in here, and pretty happy. So, yeah.
Well, that's really sweet. I feel like John Prine would be honored in that. I'm not saying you needed your mom, but you needed like reminders of home.
Yeah.
What was the best thing that they could do? You said she sang the song to
She
you?
would sing it to me over the phone.
Oh my gosh.
And yeah, she really kind of got me deep into John Prine, and kind of that first album. One of her favorite songs is Far From Me off that original album. Yeah, that's another one that just really hits me really well and makes me think of her. Yeah, John Prine. I can't say enough about him.
Yeah, I mean, we could have a whole podcast about John Prine and his music, and I know I mentioned earlier, like he's probably my favorite musician of all time. His music is so powerful for a lot of people in a lot of different ways, and that's really sweet because I have my love of his music and it means something to me. But that is really sweet to hear. And you're right. If you've never heard this song, this is a very typical John Prine, like quirky, I wouldn't even say poetic. It's just quirky, like funny, humorous.
Yeah. I mean, what a great songwriter. And yeah, my mom loved him, and that's kind of pushed me forward into it. And so, yeah, absolutely.
That's beautiful. Okay. Number 7.
This is one of my favorite songs. I think it's one of the best written songs of all time. It's The Weight by the band, but The Last Waltz live with the Staple Singers. Just a beautiful tune. I think The Weight is just one of the most gorgeous songs ever, and just Levon Helm's voice on that song is just awesome. And then combining it with the sounds of Mavis Staples and the Staple Singers just really takes it to a whole new level for me. I found the song, well, I've heard The Weight as a kid. I originally heard the Aretha version of it. I mean, everyone's done their version of The Weight, but I originally heard the Aretha, and, I enjoyed it and such. But during high school, I remember kind of similar to that COVID time. I was sitting in the living room with my aunt and my mom, um, and we were talking about Levon Helm. And I'd never really heard of him or the band. And so I go upstairs. I had some online homework to do, and I was like, "All right, I'll listen to that album, the band." Just it was incredible. Just kind of the sound that I was hearing, and yeah, I immediately fell in love. And I remember the night before we went to the beach, we took an annual beach trip every year. My dad got this CD out of his, or a DVD out of his back pocket that he bought at the store, The Last Waltz. Yeah, I remember I played some of the soundtrack even on the way to the beach. Like the night before we left, we watched it, and then the next day I was already playing the soundtrack from it. And this one is just one that stuck to me like glue. For me, I immediately picture just Nazareth, Mississippi, and just the imagery. You're in this small town, devils walking down the street, and just, yeah, what a great song.
I love it, man. So this song is just like, it's just important to you because it's just such a great song. It just
This
sounds like
song,
maybe it's just so good that you're like, I don't know. It's important because I love it so much. Yeah.
exactly. There's not a story or not an image that comes to mind. This is just my favorite song, and anytime I hear it, I just immediately fall in love with it, and it's just gorgeous. There's literally not a fault I can find with it, and I just love that song, that version they do with the Staple Singers, and I love Papa Staples' voice, just kind of smooth and melodic, and again, kind of that. It just reminds me of the South and kind of gospel and beautiful sound that kind of came out of that Mississippi Delta there from Memphis.
Well, in full disclosure, like Owen, we've never met in person. Like I don't know you personally. It is the first time we've ever talked. But to me, just in this short conversation, like to me, it makes sense that this is your favorite song because looking back at these songs you've already chosen from the jukebox, we have classic rock. We have, I was classic rock. We have classic songs that are more rock and roll, like Elvis and the Beatles, to early folk with Arlo Guthrie, then this modern or alternative country. Like you blend all of those genres together,
Yeah,
you get the band. It's this country, rockabilly, hillbilly, dad rock. I guess like what you said. It's like all of those
exactly.
things together. I don't know you, but if this song represents you, I kind of know you now.
Yeah, I
Like
mean,
okay,
you kind of like what you said. You kind of get that all during the last waltz. You kind of get more folky Americana, Joni Mitchell and Neil Young, and then more rocking like Eric Clapton and Muddy Waters coming through, and kind of I wouldn't say soul, but kind of again kind of dad rock a little bit with Van Morrison, but and you got a band that's so versatile, backing Dylan, backing the Dead, backing Ronnie Hawkins, kind of that rockabilly sound. Just they are the band, what moxie to come up. And I think Richard Manuel says it in the film, just like we're just like the band.
exactly, yeah,
It's awesome.
that's
I
so
would
cool.
highly recommend it.
Well, you've talked to us about all your family. You talked about your mother, the influence your dad had. Now we're talking about yourself. So what do you got? I'm interested in these last couple songs. What do you got next?
So, during college one winter, my mom sent me the song "Everything Is Free" by Gillian Welch and David Rawlings, and I liked it, and it kind of just took off. So I listened to that album, Time the Revelator, um, and it just blew me away. And it was really kind of my intro into my love for really, I kind of exploded into country almost exclusively after that. So the song I picked is April the 14th, Part One. I think I just chose the song in particular because it just paints such a vivid imagery and landscape, and just kind of this small town that's busted out and like run down. These people sleeping in their car, this club that had people dancing the night before with all the cigarette butts and plastic cups on the floor. And she just paints such a vivid image through this song. And I actually had the opportunity to go out to the panhandle of Oklahoma, which I went through Boise City, which on April 14th had Black Sunday, which was one of the worst storms in the Dust Bowl, which she's kind of writing about in this song, and got to see these towns. Kind of, she was talking about these dying towns that are slowly just becoming forgotten pieces of America. And that's really what I see in her song. So I remember sitting around for hours listening to this album over and over and over again in class, in the library, in my dorm room. Also, as a child, I remember on that train CD, there was a bootleg copy of her playing Ben DeBerry's Last Run that my dad's friend bootlegged. And I know we have a bootleg tape still at home of Gillian Welch playing in a local theater, maybe multiple even. So Gillian Welch has been almost kind of marinated in me, whether I realized it or not. I was like, I know these songs, and they just have a special place in my heart now. And she's just so incredible in every way.
Jillian Welch or your mom?
Well, both. But yeah, I appreciate her for kind of getting me into it, even if you know it or not. I mean, I think there's a tendency as a young adult to kind of obviously resist, like, oh, my parents kind of like this. I need to be different and do something else. And the older I get, it's kind of like, oh, they're kind of right. This is pretty good.
Man, like I just think about these other songs and just like the gift that your parents have given you, man. And
Yeah,
I love that. And I love how these songs, like we're about to go into number 9 here. You got 2 more on this list, but it's like every single one just reminds you of, or maybe not every single one, but like most of them remind you of your parents, or like have they're there somewhere, like in the
yeah.
background or in the foreground. That's beautiful.
So it's funny that you say that, because this next song was when I didn't have my parents with me. I went to Patagonia to study abroad in the fall, and it was just a very isolating trip. There wasn't a lot of cell reception. There wasn't, yeah, it was kind of hard to get in contact with my folks back home, so I was kind of on my own. And a lot of times when I was traveling, I always have a tendency to fall into listening to Bruce Springsteen. I don't know why, but just whenever I'm traveling, I like to listen to Bruce Springsteen. He's just great car ride music. I can always fall asleep if I'm listening to Bruce Springsteen for some reason. I don't know why, which is kind of funny because he brings so much energy and passion. But I was listening to Bruce Springsteen while I was abroad to the song "The River" live 1979 No Nukes concert, and it tells the story of just kind of this young man who grew up. I kind of envision a Pennsylvania Rust Belt town, New Jersey, kind of almost like industrialist city. And it tells the story of growing up. And, as a adolescent in such a changing time period, I think it's something that very, very, very much spoke to me. Just so much change, and you have all these hopes and dreams and such. And, it kind of tells a down and out story in this context, but just nevertheless, a story of hopes and dreams, adolescence change, which a lot of his songs do. But yeah, this one, he brings so much energy in this live concert. And I just remember riding around Patagonia listening to this Bruce Springsteen song over and over and over again. And I think one of the main lyrics that really stuck out to me is he really emphasizes now the memories come back to haunt me. They haunt me like a curse. Is a dream of life, it doesn't come true, or is it something worse? Just kind of these stories of desperation and adolescence that he paints and creates. I think is something that really speaks to me. Yeah, Bruce Springsteen will always be connected with travel and being on the road, which is something I love. I love traveling. As much as I talk about home and family, I also love just traveling and being alone and seeing the world. And yeah, I always know that Bruce is going to be there for me.
He should be soundtracking. Yeah, I mean, a lot of it, his music does fit perfectly on any trip that you're on. But mostly for me, it's always landscapes of America because that's what he's singing about. And
Yeah.
I haven't been to Patagonia. What were you riding around in? A car, bike, motorcycle?
Yeah, just a little car, a little Toyota red truck. I get my headphones in and just play it as we're riding down these gravel roads, looking at the mountains and the glaciers and the lakes and everything. It's just some of the most beautiful scenery ever. But yeah, you're absolutely right. He tells the landscape of America and the stories of America. So, it kind of almost takes you back to where you came from and roots you. that song will always be connected with that time and that place. Yeah, Bruce is awesome.
Yes, he's the boss.
Exactly, he is
Yeah.
the boss.
Well, we got one more song. What do you got? What are you going to close out your playlist with, your jukebox selections before we eat this
So,
ham and green beans?
oh, so my last song is called "Blue Chicago Moon" by Songs, Ohio. And I found the song again in Patagonia, but it really hadn't taken a route for me till spring semester this year. Blue Chicago Moon by Songs, Ohio. Another just one of these tortured poets, Jason Molina. Again, lost too soon just because years of abuse on himself, taking toll with drugs and alcohol. But this song really kind of helped me get through the spring, kind of coming back from Patagonia and coming back to this place. It's kind of a big letdown, and seasonal depression up here is very real and everything. And this song just kind of helped me get through the spring, and I think it's just a beautiful song. I sat on the porch at night listening to this song, staring at the moon on my little speaker and listening to it, and just again, it's another one of those little songs where those opening chords really pull you in. Just kind of a haunting little melody and absolutely gorgeous song. And yeah, it's talking about a time that he was going through a bad depression, and it's something I could relate to at that time. Just like I'm very depressed, and not a lot's going right, but that song really helped me work through it. And something that he says in it, just you're not helpless, and I'll help you to try to beat it. And just those words of encouragement you hear when you're going through such a tough time, just really, it really just uplifted me. And it's just a beautiful little song. Sit alone at night, you can just listen to it over and over and over again. And yeah, I think music can really help you get through these tough times in your life. Even if it is kind of sad, depressing music, you knew someone there was in that pain and kind of felt how you felt. I don't think it's one that's in my bones quite yet. And doesn't remind me of these happier, better times, but it's definitely something that's still very present in my life, and I still listen to it and have just learned to love it. And yeah, Blue Chicago Moon.
Well, I think it's important to just reiterate what you just said. Like, we have these sad songs, maybe because we're sad, but we don't want to listen to these songs because it makes us sad. We want to listen to
Yeah,
these songs because it makes us feel not alone, right?
exactly.
Like I may be going through something, you may be going through, we all are going through something, but we find a song, a sound, a singer who is putting words to like how you feel, or maybe just the notes or the tones of the instruments kind of resonates with your feelings, your emotions. There's real power in that,
Absolutely.
you know?
And I think one of the things like one of the words he says in there in that lyrics that really resonated with me is I think almost my escape from it is try to keep myself busy and run from it. And he says halfway through the song, if the blues are your hunter, you will come face to face. You can't like you just can't outrun that. So that just really resonated with me, man. Like, wow, like the only way to outrun it is just facing it and looking in yourself and working and figuring out what is really at the root of this. And so that song is very, very powerful to me. It's just, again, beautiful is the word I would use. It's just very simple, very melodic, and again, kind of haunting almost some ways. And you can just feel that title, just that's almost the picture I get from it. You're just out at night on your deck or in a rocking chair. It's just you face to face with that moon.
That's powerful, man. And that's a beautiful image.
Yeah.
But I think we should cue up the jukebox now.
I
Listen to
agree.
these songs, eat some of this ham and grits, and we got our sweet tea here. Oh, and this has been awesome.
Thank you so much.
Seriously. Thank you, man. And thank you for like kind of telling us your story and telling us your story through these songs. And even though we've never met, I feel like I know you now through this. And it feels like you come from just a beautiful family of music lovers that, that maybe that's not their most important aspect, but it sounds to me like the most important thing is like the love that's in your house, the love that's in your
Yeah.
home, the love that's in your family. And it is evident just through the soundtrack and these stories that come through that. So I hope that, we all, if we have family members in our lives and we understand like the importance and the power of love and music and in these relationships. And, it's just very motivating to,
Yeah.
I don't know, just appreciate your family. I think you've motivated
Absolutely.
me just to appreciate my family and just give this gift of music. So thank you,
Yeah, I
man.
might have to give him a call after this and give him a big thank you for all the help they gave
Yeah.
me on this, whether I knew it or not.
Well, hopefully they're going to be listening.
Yeah.
Man, this has been a real honor. So thank you so
Yeah.
much, Owen.
Thank
Yeah.
you so much. And it's been a pleasure. And yeah, can't wait to have some of this good food.
Thank you so much for visiting Mel's Diner today. We love serving you those very important stories and songs, and we really hope you become a regular. If you or someone you know would love to be on the show, please reach out to me. Mel's Diner Jukebox at gmail.com. And a playlist of all the songs that were selected from the jukebox today can be found in a link in the show notes. And now, as we listen to each song through the lens of those amazing stories, we share in the connection that we just built through the power of great music and incredible people.